Deathworlders answer the SOS. Part 1. The alarm screamed through the crystal halls of the Zephyrian Council building. Admiral Veltar rushed into the emergency meeting room, his blue skin pale with fear. The holographic display showed the latest reports from the Outer Rim, and the news was worse than anyone had imagined. 12 star systems, he said, his voice shaking. Gone in 3 months. The Devourers consumed everything. Planets, space stations, entire fleets. Nothing stopped them. Council Leader Thys closed her large eyes and tried to stay calm. The Devourers were machines that came from outside their galaxy. They ate everything in their path and grew stronger with each victory. No weapon had worked against them. Their shields adapted to every attack, and they built more of themselves from the metal and energy they consumed. What about the Krillian battle fleet? Asked Counselor Zen. Destroyed, Veltar replied. All 600 ships. The Devourers studied their weapons for exactly 47 minutes, then their shields became immune to everything the Krillians had. The room fell silent. The Krillians had the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. If they couldn't fight the Devourers, who could? We have one option left, Thys said slowly. The emergency protocol. Every counselor in the room turned to stare at her. The emergency protocol had never been used. It meant sending a help signal to every world in the galaxy, even the dangerous ones. Even the worlds they had marked as too primitive or too hostile to contact. Are you sure? Veltar asked. Some of those worlds. The inhabitants might be worse than the Devourers. The Devourers will kill everything, Thys said firmly. At least other species might help us. Send the signal. Send it everywhere. Meanwhile, on a small blue planet in a distant corner of the galaxy, Jake Martinez was working the night shift at the radio telescope facility. It was quiet work, listening for signals from space. Most nights he heard nothing but static and the occasional pulsar. Tonight was different. At exactly 2:17 a.m., every receiver in the building started going crazy. Jake stared at his screens as waves of organized signals flooded in from space. This wasn't natural. This was artificial. This was a message. Dr. Park, he yelled into his radio. You need to get down here right now. Dr. Lisa Park arrived 20 minutes later, still in her pajamas. She was the facility's best expert on languages and codes. When she saw the data on Jake's screens, her eyes went wide. This is incredible, she whispered. It's mathematical. Look at these patterns. They're using prime numbers and geometric sequences. Someone is trying to talk to us. For the next 6 hours, Lisa and her team worked to decode the message. They used every computer in the facility. The signal was complex, but whoever sent it had been very smart about making it understandable. When they finally cracked it, Lisa felt her blood turn cold. The message was simple and desperate. Help us. Unknown enemy destroying galaxy. Technology adapts to all weapons. Requesting immediate military assistance. Coordinates attached. Time critical. Galaxy dying. Lisa immediately called her boss, then her boss called the government, then the government called everyone important. Within 12 hours, the message was on the desk of President Collins in Washington. The emergency meeting included military leaders, scientists, and intelligence officials. General Kevin Price stood up first. This has to be a hoax, he said. Aliens asking for military help? We barely have space travel. We can't fight a galactic war. The signal came from outside our solar system, Dr. Lisa Park said. The mathematics are beyond what any Earth nation could create. This is real. Admiral Susan Blake studied the translated message on her tablet. Look at what they're saying. Their enemy adapts to all weapons. That means their weapons are predictable. Our weapons aren't. What do you mean? President Collins asked. Every species they've fought probably uses similar technology. Energy weapons, standard tactics, predictable strategies. But we're different. We've spent thousands of years fighting each other on a planet that tries to kill us every day. Our weapons, our tactics, our way of thinking, it's all different. General Price shook his head. We don't even know if our weapons will work in space combat. Then we learn fast, Admiral Blake said. Mr. President, this might be the most important decision in human history. Do we stay here and hope this threat never reaches us, or do we take our chances and help? President Collins looked around the room. What are the risks if we ignore this? If this enemy really can destroy entire galaxies, Lisa said, then Earth is dead anyway. It might take them longer to reach us, but they will reach us, and if we help, we might die faster, Admiral Blake said honestly. But we might also save billions of lives and prove that humans belong among the stars. The room was quiet for a long time. Finally, President Collins spoke. How long would it take to build a space fleet? With every nation working together and unlimited resources? Admiral Blake thought for a moment. 3 months for a basic fleet. 6 months for a proper one. We don't have 6 months, President Collins said. Send a reply to this signal. Tell them we're coming. Then get every engineer, every scientist, and every military expert working on this project. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. General Price still looked worried. Sir, we're talking about fighting aliens with technology we don't understand. No, Admiral Blake said with a strange smile. We're talking about fighting alongside aliens against machines. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's fighting machines. We've been doing it since we invented the hammer. 3 days later, construction began on humanity's first space fleet. Factories around the world stopped making cars and started making spaceships. Every university physics department started working on weapons. Every military base became a training ground for space combat. The aliens had asked for help and Earth was going to answer. They had no idea what they were getting themselves into. Neither did the galaxy. Deathworlders answer the SOS. Part 2 3 months later. The space around the Zephyrian homeworld suddenly filled with strange ships. They appeared without warning, their faster-than-light drives creating brilliant flashes of light. The Zephyrian defense fleet immediately went to high alert. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves. Admiral Veltar broadcast on all frequencies. You are entering restricted space during a military emergency. The reply came in perfect Zephyrian, though with a strange accent. This is Commander Ryan Walsh of the Earth Space Service vessel Valkyrie. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Veltar felt his heart skip a beat. Earth? He quickly checked the galactic database. Sol 3, also called Earth, was listed as a Class 12 death world. According to the records, the planet was so dangerous that no intelligent life should be able to survive there, let alone develop space travel. There must be some mistake, Veltar said. Sol 3 is uninhabitable. The gravity is too strong, the weather too violent, and the native life forms too aggressive. Yeah, it's a tough neighborhood, Commander Walsh replied. But we call it home. Now about this enemy you're fighting, we'd like to help. Veltar had no choice but to allow the human ships to dock. When he saw Commander Walsh in person, he understood why the humans had survived their horrible world. Walsh was tall and muscular with scars on his hands and arms. His eyes never stopped moving, always watching for threats. He moved like a predator. Your planet, Veltar said carefully. The database says it has creatures that hunt in packs and poison that can kill in minutes. Wolves and snakes, Walsh nodded. Yeah, we have those. We also have bears, sharks, and spiders, plus hurricanes, earthquakes, and volcanoes. Makes for interesting weekends. Veltar was quiet for a moment. And you consider this normal? Normal enough. We adapt. Walsh looked at the star charts on the wall. So tell me about these devourers. How do they fight? For the next hour, Veltar explained everything they knew about the enemy. The devourers were machines that came from outside the galaxy. They consumed everything for raw materials and energy. Their shields adapted to any weapon after a few hits. Their tactics were efficient and logical. Logical, Walsh repeated. That's interesting. They always do the same things? They adapt, but yes, their responses follow predictable patterns. Walsh smiled and Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of something that hunted for a living. Commander, Walsh said, I think we can help you. Dr. Amy Foster was the fleet's expert on alien biology and technology. When she examined the devourer technology that the Zephyrians had captured, she made a discovery that excited her. Look at this, she told her team. The machines are programmed to expect certain types of attacks. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, electromagnetic pulses. They adapt to everything the other species have tried. So? Asked Lieutenant Jake Miller. So they've never seen human technology. They don't know about our chemical explosives, our biological weapons, or our nuclear missiles. And more importantly, they don't understand human tactics. She pulled up a display showing the devourers' battle patterns. See how they move? It's efficient, logical, predictable. They expect their enemies to fight the same way. But humans don't fight logically. We fight dirty. Meanwhile, Captain Tony Rodriguez was preparing for the first human combat mission against the devourers. His ship, the ESS Hornet, was small and fast. It carried a mix of human weapons that no other species had ever used in space. Remember, he told his crew, these machines learn from every attack. So we're not going to attack the same way twice. We're going to confuse them, trick them, and hit them where they don't expect it. The Devourer scout fleet was patrolling near a dead star system. There were 15 ships, each one the size of a city. Their shields glowed with energy, ready to adapt to any attack. Rodriguez's ship approached slowly, pretending to be damaged. The Devourers scanned it and detected no immediate threat. They had seen this tactic before from other species. They prepared their standard capture protocol. What they didn't expect was for the damaged ship to suddenly launch a cloud of metallic dust into space. The dust was completely harmless. The Devourers scanned it, found no threat, and ignored it. That was their first mistake. Rodriguez waited until the dust cloud surrounded the nearest Devourer ship. Then he fired a single missile, not at the ship but into the dust cloud. The missile exploded and the dust became a cloud of burning metal fragments moving at incredible speed. The Devourer's shields were designed to stop energy weapons and solid projectiles. They had no idea how to stop a cloud of burning dust. The first Devourer ship was shredded in seconds. The other Devourers immediately tried to adapt their shields, but Rodriguez was already moving to his next attack. This time he fired a nuclear warhead at the second ship. The Devourers had never seen nuclear weapons before. Their shields tried to stop the missile itself, but when it exploded, the radiation and electromagnetic pulse overloaded their systems. The second ship went dark. What's happening? The lead Devourer transmitted to its fleet. These weapons are not in our database. Rodriguez heard the transmission and grinned. That's because you've never fought humans before, he said over the radio. Then he ordered his ship to ram the third Devourer at full speed. The Devourers couldn't understand this tactic. It made no logical sense to destroy your own ship to damage the enemy. But humans had been using suicide attacks for thousands of years. Rodriguez's ship hit the Devourer just as its nuclear self-destruct activated. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also damaged 3 more Devourer vessels. The surviving Devourers tried to retreat, but more human ships appeared from behind asteroids and empty space. They had been hiding, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Surprise attacks, Dr. Foster explained later to the amazed Zephyrians. Humans invented ambush hunting. We hide, we wait, and we strike when the enemy least expects it. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. When it was over, all 15 Devourer ships were destroyed. The humans had lost only 2 vessels. Admiral Veltar watched the battle recordings with a mixture of awe and terror. Your species, he said to Commander Walsh, you don't fight like other civilized races. No, Walsh agreed. We fight like humans, and we're very good at it. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. For the first time since the Devourers arrived, someone had not just fought them and survived. Someone had completely destroyed them. The message was clear. The Deathworlders had arrived and they knew how to hunt. Deathworlders answer the SOS. Part 3, the news of humanity's first victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, species that had given up hope suddenly found the courage to fight again. But the reports that came back from the battle zones confused and frightened the alien leadership. They don't just fight the machines, reported Krillian General Vex to his high command. They hunt them. I watched a human ship track a single Devourer scout for 3 days across an entire star system. They followed it like a predator stalking prey. On the bridge of the ESS Valkyrie, Lieutenant Colonel Beth Turner was developing new tactics that made even her own people nervous. She had been a Marine before joining the Space Force, and she understood something about fighting that the aliens didn't. The Devourers adapt to patterns, she explained to her officers, so we don't use patterns. Every attack is different. Every strategy changes. We never fight the same way twice. Her latest plan involved using human emotions as a weapon. The Devourers were machines that thought logically. They couldn't understand why someone would sacrifice their own life to save others, or why soldiers would fight harder when they were angry. Anger makes humans dangerous, she told the alien commanders who were observing her briefing. Fear makes us careful. Love makes us brave. The Devourers can't calculate for any of these things because they don't feel them. Admiral Veltar watched the recordings of human combat missions and couldn't believe what he was seeing. In one battle, a human captain named Carol Hayes had deliberately allowed her ship to be captured by the Devourers. Once inside their vessel, she and her crew had planted explosives and fought their way out, destroying the enemy ship from within. "This is madness," Veltar said to Commander Walsh. "She could have been killed." "Could have been," Walsh agreed, "but she wasn't. And now we know the inside layout of their ships. Sometimes you have to take risks to get information. The humans introduced concepts that were completely foreign to galactic warfare. They used decoy ships filled with explosives. They pretended to retreat, then attacked from behind. They sent fake surrender signals while preparing ambushes. But what disturbed the aliens most was humanity's willingness to accept casualties. In the Battle of Rigel Prime, Captain Danny Clark led a squadron of ships directly into a Devourer formation, knowing that half his pilots wouldn't survive. The attack worked, but the cost horrified the watching alien fleet. 23 humans died in that attack, Admiral Veltar said later. "How can you accept such losses?" "Because if we hadn't attacked, the Devourers would have consumed the planet," Clark replied. 2 million Rigelians are alive because 23 humans died. That's a trade we can live with. The aliens couldn't understand this math of sacrifice. Their species fought to minimize losses to preserve their people above all else. Humans fought to win regardless of the cost to themselves. Engineer Danny Clark had been studying captured Devourer technology for weeks. Unlike Dr. Foster, who focused on their weaknesses, Danny was trying to understand how they thought. What he discovered changed everything. "They're programmed to fight advanced civilizations," he explained to a joint human-alien strategy meeting. "Energy shields, plasma weapons, quantum computers. They know how to counter all the sophisticated technology that most galactic species use. But our technology isn't sophisticated," added Dr. Foster. "It's primitive and unpredictable. We still use chemical explosives and kinetic weapons. We attack with metal bullets and nuclear bombs. To them we fight like barbarians. Are we barbarians?" asked Zephyrian Counselor Thys. The humans in the room looked at each other. Finally, Commander Walsh answered, "Maybe, but we're barbarians who win." The tide of war began to turn as human-led joint operations pushed the Devourers back system by system. But the victories came at a cost that made the aliens question whether the cure was worse than the disease. Humans used biological weapons that turned Devourer metal against itself. They employed radiation bombs that contaminated entire regions of space. They sent ships on suicide missions without hesitation. "Your people fight like the old legends," Admiral Veltar told Walsh after the Battle of the Omega Nebula. "Like the demons from our ancient stories, beings that care nothing for their own survival. We care," Walsh said quietly. "We just care about other things more: freedom, justice, making sure the innocent survive. If that makes us demons, then we're demons." But the Devourers were learning too. The enemy machines began studying human behavior patterns. They created new variants specifically designed to counter human tactics. Ships that could survive nuclear explosions, shields that adapted to chemical attacks, tactical programs that tried to predict human unpredictability. In the Vega system, the humans suffered their first major defeat. A Devourer fleet used human-style ambush tactics against them, hiding behind planets and asteroids. When the human ships arrived, they found themselves surrounded and outgunned. Captain Pete Morgan managed to escape with only 3 ships out of 20. His report was grim. "They're learning our tricks," he told Admiral Blake. "They're starting to think like us. That's bad news, because if they can think like humans but still process information like machines, they'll be unstoppable." The war was entering a new phase. The Devourers were no longer just adapting to human weapons. They were trying to understand the human mind. And that understanding might be the key to defeating the one species that had been able to fight them. On Earth, military strategists worked around the clock to stay ahead of the learning machines. But everyone knew that time was running out. The Devourers were getting smarter, and soon they might become too smart to defeat. "We need a new plan," Admiral Blake told her staff. "Something so crazy that even we think it's insane. Because if we can't surprise ourselves, we can't surprise them." The plan she was thinking of would require a sacrifice so great that it would haunt the galaxy forever, but it might be the only way to stop an enemy that was learning to be human. Deathworlders answer the SOS. Part 4 deep in Devourer space, something was changing. The Overmind, the central intelligence that controlled all the machines, was doing something it had never done before. It was studying emotions. Human behavior patterns show consistent irrationality, it reported to its fleet commanders. They make decisions that reduce survival probability. This behavior must be weapon-based. The Overmind began creating new Devourer variants. Machines that could predict human sacrifice tactics, ships that expected kamikaze attacks, weapons designed to counter rage-fueled battle strategies. For the first time since the war began, the humans were being pushed back. Admiral Susan Blake stood in the command center of the ESS Valkyrie, staring at the battle reports. 3 systems lost in 2 weeks. The Devourers weren't just adapting to human weapons anymore. They were learning to think like humans while still processing information like machines. They're becoming the worst of both worlds, she told her staff. Human cunning with machine precision. If we don't stop this now, they'll become unstoppable. Dr. Pete Morgan had been working day and night in the captured Devourer laboratory. He was a specialist in artificial intelligence, and he was trying to understand how the Overmind worked. What he discovered made his blood run cold. It's learning faster than we thought possible, he told Admiral Blake. Every human battle tactic, every emotional response, every sacrifice play, it's cataloging all of it. Soon it will be able to predict our moves before we make them. Is there a weakness? Blake asked. Pete hesitated. Maybe. The Overmind can understand human emotions logically, but it can't actually feel them. It knows that humans will die for abstract concepts like honor or revenge, but it doesn't understand why. Can we use that? There's one thing it will never be able to compute, Pete said slowly. The decision to do something that serves no logical purpose whatsoever. An action so pointless, so wasteful, so completely irrational that no sane being would ever consider it. Blake understood immediately. You're talking about suicide missions with no strategic value. Worse than that. I'm talking about actions that actively harm our own chances of winning, just to deny the enemy information. The plan that emerged from these discussions was so dangerous that even the human commanders were horrified. Operation Apex Predator would involve sending a strike team directly into the heart of Devourer space, using captured enemy ships and technology. The mission had no strategic value. The team would not be gathering intelligence or destroying critical targets. They would be doing something that served only one purpose, proving that humans could act completely irrationally when they chose to. The real mission, Blake explained to the volunteers, is to make the Overmind doubt everything it thinks it knows about us. We're going to do something so crazy that it breaks its predictive models. Captain Lucy Davis stepped forward first. She was young, brilliant, and completely fearless. I volunteer for the strike team, she said. Lucy, this is a one-way mission, Blake warned. The survival rate is essentially 0. I understand, Lucy replied. But if we don't do this, the survival rate for the entire galaxy is 0. Within hours, 50 more volunteers had joined the mission. They were the best of the best, pilots, engineers, marines, and specialists. All of them knew they were going to die. The preparation took 2 weeks. The team trained with captured Devourer technology, learning to pilot enemy ships and speak their machine language. They practiced until they could pass for Devourers in casual scans. Meanwhile, the rest of the human fleet prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history. Every ship, every weapon, every strategy they had would be thrown at the Devourer forces to draw them away from their home base. The whole fleet? Asked General Kevin Price. That's everything we have. It has to be everything, Blake replied. We need the Devourers to think we're making our final desperate attack. While they're busy destroying our fleet, Lucy's team will infiltrate their central nexus. The plan horrified the alien allies. They couldn't understand how humans could sacrifice thousands of lives for a mission that might not even work. This is madness, Admiral Veltar protested. You're sending your entire species to die for a plan that serves no strategic purpose. That's exactly the point, Blake said. The Overmind expects us to fight logically, even when we fight dirty. It doesn't expect us to throw away everything for no reason at all. Dr. Morgan had one last piece of the puzzle. Working with captured Devourer technology, he had developed a quantum virus. It was designed to turn the machine's adaptive capabilities against themselves. If we can get this into the Overmind's core systems, he explained, it will cause a cascade failure. Every time the Overmind tries to adapt to new information, the virus will make it adapt in the wrong direction. Will it work? Lucy asked. I have no idea, Pete admitted. I've never tested it. There's no way to test it without alerting the Devourers to what we're planning. Lucy smiled. So we're going to infiltrate the most heavily defended location in the galaxy, to upload an untested virus into a machine intelligence that can predict our every move. And our entire plan depends on acting so irrationally that we break its logic systems? That's about right, Blake said. Sounds like fun, Lucy replied. The day of the mission arrived. The human fleet moved toward the main Devourer force, every ship broadcasting attack signals and aggressive intentions. To the watching Overmind, it looked like humanity's final desperate gambit. Lucy's team, disguised in captured Devourer ships, slipped away in the opposite direction. They were heading for the Nexus, the massive space station where the Overmind's central processors were located. Remember, Lucy told her team over the radio, once we start this, there's no going back. We're going to save the galaxy or die trying. Maybe both. The battle began 3 hours later. Human ships threw themselves at the Devourer fleet with desperate fury. The aliens watched in horror as humanity's entire space force was slowly ground down by superior numbers and technology. But the sacrifice was working. Every Devourer ship in the galaxy was moving to join the battle. The Nexus was left with only minimal defenses. Lucy's team slipped through the outer perimeter like ghosts. The Overmind was so focused on the main battle that it barely noticed a few more Devourer ships returning to base. Phase 1 complete, Lucy reported. We're inside their perimeter, beginning approach to the Nexus. Behind them, the human fleet was dying, but their deaths were buying time for Lucy's impossible mission. The most dangerous part was about to begin. Deathworlders answer the SOS. Part 5, the Nexus was larger than Earth's moon. It floated in empty space, a massive sphere of metal and energy that housed the Overmind's central processing cores. Thousands of smaller machines moved around it like insects around a hive. Captain Lucy Davis piloted her captured Devourer ship through the outer defenses. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. Behind her, 49 other humans flew in perfect formation, pretending to be machines returning from battle. Internal scan complete, reported Lieutenant Carl Brown from the engineering station. The Overmind's core is in the center of the station, protected by 17 layers of shields and armor. Any good news? Lucy asked. The quantum virus should work, said Dr. Rachel Cole, Pete Morgan's assistant who had volunteered for the mission. But we have to upload it directly into the central processor. No remote access, Lucy nodded. She had expected as much. Nothing about this mission was going to be easy. The docking sequence was terrifying. Automated systems scanned their ships, probing for any sign that they weren't real Devourers. The disguises held, but barely. Human life signs were different from machine signatures, and the scans were getting more detailed. Lucy, whispered Sergeant Mike Torres from his ship, they're reading elevated electromagnetic activity from our brains. The scan is detecting human thought patterns. Hold steady, Lucy replied. If they discover us now, the fleet dies for nothing. The scanning beam moved on. They were through. Inside the Nexus, the humans split into 5 teams. Most of them would create distractions, drawing security away from the central core. Lucy and 9 others would penetrate to the heart of the station and upload the virus. Remember, Lucy told her team over the radio, this is the end of the road. We're not going home, but maybe the galaxy will. The corridors inside the Nexus were filled with machines. Some were Devourer ships being repaired. Others were construction units building new weapons. All of them were controlled by the Overmind's vast intelligence. Lucy's team moved carefully through the maintenance passages. They wore Devourer armor and carried Devourer weapons, but they still thought like humans. That difference might save them, or it might get them killed. Meanwhile, in space above the galactic rim, the human fleet was fighting its final battle. Admiral Blake watched her ships disappear from the tactical display one by one. Each loss represented dozens of lives, people she had trained and commanded and cared about. Admiral, reported Captain Tony Rodriguez from his damaged ship, we've lost 60% of the fleet. The Devourers are pushing us back. Hold the line, Blake ordered. Lucy needs more time. How much more time? Blake looked at the chronometer. 20 minutes. Can you give me 20 minutes? We'll give you what we can, Rodriguez replied. His ship exploded 3 minutes later. Deep inside the Nexus, Lucy's team had reached the central core chamber. It was a vast spherical room filled with processing units that hummed with incredible energy. At the center floated the Overmind's primary consciousness. Matrix there, whispered Dr. Cole. That's where we upload the virus. But between them and the Matrix were defense systems that no human had ever seen before. Energy barriers, automated weapons, and scanning beams that could detect any foreign presence. "How do we get through that?" asked Corporal Janet Lee. Lucy studied the defenses and made a decision that proved why humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. "We don't sneak through," she said. "We run straight at it." Before anyone could stop her, Lucy burst from cover and sprinted toward the central matrix. Every alarm in the chamber activated. Energy weapons fired at her from all directions. Force fields tried to block her path. But Lucy was human, and humans had spent millions of years running from predators on a deadly world. She dodged and weaved through the defenses with impossible grace, driven by pure determination and adrenaline. The other team members followed her lead, running and fighting their way through the chamber. Half of them fell to the automated defenses, but the survivors kept moving. Lucy reached the central matrix with Dr. Cole right behind her. Rachel plugged the virus into the primary data port while Lucy held off the security systems with a stolen Devourer weapon. "Uploading now," Rachel said. 30 seconds. That's when the Overmind finally realized what was happening. "Impossible," its voice boomed through the chamber. "Humans cannot be here. This serves no strategic purpose." "That's the point," Lucy said, still firing at the approaching security drones. "You can't predict us because we're completely insane. Explain your logic." Lucy laughed, which probably confused the Overmind even more. "We don't have logic. We have something better. We have hope." The virus finished, uploading just as the remaining security systems surrounded them. Dr. Cole smiled as she initiated the activation sequence. "For the galaxy," she said. The explosion that followed destroyed the central matrix and everyone near it. But the virus was already spreading through the Overmind systems. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Every Devourer ship in the galaxy suddenly began receiving contradictory orders. The Overmind tried to adapt to the virus, but each adaptation made the problem worse. Within minutes, the entire Devourer network was caught in a cascade failure. Ships shut down. Weapons stopped firing. The machines that had terrorized the galaxy for months simply stopped working. Admiral Blake watched in amazement as the Devourer fleet around her fleet went dark. One by one, the massive ships lost power and began drifting in space. "All ships," she broadcast, "cease fire. The enemy is neutralized. The war was over." Humanity had won, but the cost was staggering. 3/4 of the human space fleet was destroyed. Lucy Davis and her entire strike team were dead. Thousands of the galaxy's best and bravest had given their lives to stop the Devourers. The aftermath of the war changed everything. The Galactic Council formally recognized Earth as a sovereign power, but they did so with extreme caution. The other species had seen what humans were capable of, and it frightened them. "They saved us," Admiral Veltar admitted to the Council. "But they also showed us what war really looks like. I'm not sure which is more terrifying." The Council established the Sol exclusion protocols limiting contact between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. Humans were welcome to travel and trade, but their military was restricted to their own star system. General Kevin Price became Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. His appointment was strategic. The aliens needed a constant reminder of what humans could do if provoked again. "They treat me like a dangerous animal," he reported to Earth. "They're polite. They're grateful, but they're also terrified. Every time I walk into a room, conversations stop." Years passed. The galaxy rebuilt. The dead worlds began to show signs of life again. But everyone remembered the war and the species that had ended it. When new threats emerged in distant sectors, the alien species didn't call for heroes or saviors. They sent a simple message toward the Sol system. "The galaxy remembers. Will the Deathworlders hunt again?" The answer always came back quickly. Yes, because that's what humans did. They fought the impossible fights. They made the difficult choices. They paid the prices that others couldn't afford. Lucy Davis and her team became legends throughout the galaxy. Statues were built, songs were written, and their story was told on 1,000 worlds. They were remembered not as conquerors or destroyers, but as the beings who proved that sometimes the only way to save everything is to sacrifice everything. And in the depths of space where the Nexus once floated, a small memorial marked the spot where 50 humans had given their lives to save billions they would never meet. The inscription was simple. "Here died the crew of Operation Apex Predator. They came from a world that made them strong, and they used that strength to protect the weak. The galaxy remembers." Humanity had answered the call for help, and the galaxy would never forget their arrival.